figuring out what you're going to do next. And you held on to it. You held on to it. You tried to hang on to it because you decided, you know what, I'm going to still be a soldier.
Yeah.
You got done with, you did a half marathon.
Yeah.
But after that half marathon, you were just too beat up.
Yeah.
From that.
Yeah.
And you decided that, well, here's what you put in the book. I tell people that Jody the soldier was wounded in January of 2007, but it took him about 2 years to die, to let the soldier in you go. And I'm going to continue. Of course, this wasn't an easy decision for me, and I was filled with rage and anger. And again, I started using Oxycontin as a relief from the pain of loss. It became my problem yet again, but I deluded myself into believing I had it under my control. You talk about this thing where you're reading a Reader's Digest article.
Yeah.
And there's an Oxycontin addict in there.
Yeah.
And he's talking about how he's shooting it up. And you said to yourself, you weren't thinking, oh, that's horrible. I can't believe it. You're like,
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know you could.
Never even thought of that. Huh.
And that is what hits you.
Yeah.
And I think that is what hits you. Realizing, that's when you realize you weren't in control, right? I mean, that's got to be that moment.
Well, because the story was he was a doctor, I believe, right? Injecting himself in the bathroom when his young daughter walked in. And I had now had a young daughter. And I could just, and now I'm like, and in my mind, it wasn't, oh, imagine if my daughter caught me going to inject. I went, oh, I can inject. And I remember, and I even went through a second where I remembered how great it was to get the intravenous drugs in the hospital. And then the next second was, oh, this is not good. This is not good. And then when I ended up buying Percocet, which is like Oxycontin, but like from a guy that I knew through another guy, and they were in Ziploc bags, basically a drug deal. Remember that thing that got me arrested 20 years ago? And I went, okay, this is it. This ends here.
Well, that's awesome credit to you on that, because so many people, unfortunately, they don't take ownership of that. They don't say to themselves, you know what? I am addicted and this thing is controlling me.
Yeah.
And they always say things like just what you said, oh, I got this under control. I can stop if I want to. I just don't want to.
I need it. I'm in pain.
There you go.
I had to take it.
Yeah.
And I would ask the doctors, I would say, how do we get me off this? And this was still, 07, 08, 09, I think it was 2011 before I finished or got off them. They still had, in Canada anyway, hadn't realized what Oxycontin was capable of. And so the doctors, it's like 3 days of withdrawals. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Those withdrawals were worse than being wounded.
Those 3 days, here's your quote.
Yeah.
Those 3 days were absolute horror. Quitting Oxycontin was harder and more painful than getting blown up in Afghanistan.
Yeah. Because it was 3 days. Whereas I was in the worst, Jocko, Echo, I cannot tell you what the pain was like because it was so bad.
And that was the pain from withdrawals.
No, the pain from getting blown up.
Okay, so the pain from getting
I
blown
cannot
up was
describe
so
it
bad.
to you, but the withdrawals lasted 3 days of that kind of pain. Because your body and your mind are trying to trick you. Well, you're still in pain, man. You're still in pain. You should take them. You should take them. But once, what's funny though? The 3 days, it's almost like you hit a switch. And suddenly the pain starts to dissipate. The hollow feeling in your chest starts to fill back in. The ants stop crawling on your skin. Because you're going through all that. I was grinding the stumps of my legs into the couch to give it some kind of other sensation other than... I described it as like it was like a dog. You ever watch a dog chew on a bone when he's got it between his paws and he's just going to town like arr, 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 with his teeth? That's what it felt like on the ends of my legs. It was like I had like an animal just gnawing on my legs. And then one day, whatever the third or second, 2.5 or 3 days later, I realized I'm like, oh, most of that's kind of pretty much gone.
That's crazy.
And I tell you, there's Jody before he quit Oxycontin, and then there's Jody. And Jody before he quit was still trying his best and doing well. And if you talk to anybody, was the guy a lot of people looked up to. But things really started to turn around after I quit. I really started to become capable of a lot in my mind. I think there's a big difference. But man, that shit just. My buddy, he's a paratrooper, and he had to get some surgery on his knee. Paratroopers are always banging up their knees, and the doctor gave him codeine or Tylenol 3 or something like that, and he literally took it and threw it in the garbage. He's like, I saw what happened to Jody. Whew. I was like, I don't want anything. Right. And that's my advice, kids out there. Do not take it if you can grit your teeth enough, do not take that shit.
Stay clean.
Do your best. I wouldn't trust me around it now. If you had one, I might take it.
Mm-hmm. I don't.
Good. Let's just take some more of this alpha brain.
Take the alpha brain.
I'll get on it instead of getting addicted again.
Get off it by getting on it.